Hi everybody, Nick here. Today is September 11th, 2024, and as this title suggests, I'm going to talk about the September 11th Twin Towers attack. And first off, I'm going to start off by saying it was a very sad day, and this is in memory of all those that perished on that day. So let's begin. And I wanted to first start off by saying that I remember exactly where I was that day. As many of you probably remember, those many, many years ago, on a warm September day. Some of you may not remember, maybe you were too young. I would have been about 16 years of age, and what I was doing on that day was heading to school. So I have to cross this bridge in order to get to where I go to school. So I remember it was a beautiful day, warm, blue sky, at least here in Toronto, and I believe the same weather as in New York on that day. And I just see a lot of people kind of watching TVs at like some of the cafes or whatever along the way. And it was a very strange feeling. And I knew something was up. And then I got to school and everyone started to ask, like, did I see what happened and yada yada, everything that we all went through on that day. So it was very traumatic. We just ended up all being in the cafeteria watching on the TVs. The school basic classes were basically canceled, and so it goes. I mean, we all went home pretty early. I think they closed around 11 o'clock in the morning. And so, I went home, and it was just a weird day. I kept running into people, and that's all that was being talked about. It really did feel like the beginning of something very ominous and strange. And that's basically one of the incidences that was the catalyst in my journey to awakening and taking the red pill. So it didn't happen right away. I was just a teenager, had better things to worry about, or many other things to worry about, much rather than worry about this, which was not even in my country. But it was a very sad day. It was very frightening, and so it felt like something big was coming, like I mentioned. And I didn't start to research this, more into it until later years. So I would say around 2011, 2012 was when I started to sort of go in depth on this subject, because many years had passed. I think it was like 10 years had passed since it happened. So I started to, research stuff, check things online, watch other opposing viewpoints on this subject, which made me come to a conclusion over many years of many different things that I observed and watched that these people brought forth. It was getting more and more obvious that this was a very sinister action, obviously, but it wasn't done by, it wasn't done the way that the official story had led us to believe. We all believed that it was, terrorists from the Middle East or whatever, and they hijacked some planes and crashed them into the buildings. Okay, so we all bought that. I think the reason why it was very easy to be hoodwinked is the fact that we're all in a state of fear and shock. So it's very easy to manipulate somebody when they're in fear and shock. Not to mention, it's hard for you to think critically when you're in that state of fear and shock and awe and sadness, right? Those are low vibrational energies. And that's basically, you can't really think in the moment when you're, terribly frightened or whatnot. So I started, researching many years. I would, go on and off, back and forth to it. Sometimes I wouldn't even touch the subject for a year or 2 years. Then I would go back to it. The interest would peak. It would pretty much pique my interest whenever the date would come around. So I would sort of I'd want to see if there was any new information had come to light. And every year there would be new stuff, there would be new evidence and different theories and things like that. So it was basically the main thing that started me on the road, because that particular incident made me go down the rabbit hole further and further and further. So I kept looking at different angles. Why did it happen? You know, where did everything sort of started to connect? It was like a web, and you know, what do you call it? Connecting the dots, which is a perfect analogy for that. And it started being more unclear, and like it basically showed me what this world really is. And that's why I started to do this channel, because I couldn't hold my silence anymore. I didn't want to. I had to get this out. I had to see also if there was people who believe the same things as I do. But yeah, it was a real eye opener. So let's get into it. Now, this is going to be my belief partially. A lot of you may not believe. Some of you may still believe the official narrative, the official story, because they had the 9/11 Commission, which was completely bogus. If you go and research yourself, they left out a lot of evidence. There were so many missing details. It was insane how badly it was done, and obviously badly done on purpose. So where do we begin? There's going to be a lot of information in this video, and I'm not going to show you specifically. I'm going to just basically say what I know, at least most of what I know that I've done research on, and what made me come to the conclusion that it was all a lie. There's just overwhelming evidence, and it's hard to refute, really. So, first things first, when they started to basically, all these different people come out with information about that they found, you know, they wanted to remove the evidence really quickly from the site. They didn't want to have any forensic teams and things like that to comb through it. I'm just going to go through everything. It may not be in order, just going to be all over the place. Building 7 was a big one. Building 7 went down very shortly after, and they basically said that it was due to fire from the other two buildings. The office building caught fire. I think it's called the Solomon building, and it housed a lot of different documents. I think like CIA or something like the FBI offices, or I don't know if it was tax. I can't remember, but it was housing a lot of different information, very pertinent information. If I had to jog my memory, I think it was like government tax information, but I can't be sure. If one of you guys know, you can correct me on that. But it had a lot of important documents in Building 7, and Building 7 went down very strangely. You know, like straight down. It wasn't even like didn't even tip over, didn't partially break apart. It came down, and a lot of witnesses were saying it was almost as if like it had been a controlled demolition, because that's how buildings basically come down, perfectly, you know, straight down. So it's very odd. And some of the media was also reporting on that, and they in fact reported it as going down whilst it was still being seen behind them on the television, which is really bizarre. You know, I mean, I know it's not bizarre now, because I know that the media is a controlled medium. So, you know, there obviously must have made a mistake. The other thing that was a big indicator was the owner of the Twin Towers, Larry Silverstein, multi-billionaire. I think he's from New York. He basically was in an interview, and I don't know if this was a Freudian slip or what. He was like saying he was talking to the fire chief, and he said there's been an awful lot of loss of life here, and so we decided to pull it, and we all watched the building come down.
I remember getting a call from the fire department commander telling me that they were not sure they were going to be able to contain the fire. And I said, you know, we've had such terrible loss of life. Maybe the smartest thing to do is pull it. And they made that decision to pull, and then we watched the building collapse.
So the term pullet, it actually comes from a demolition. It's a demolition term, which means to ignite the charges, which means to bring the building down. So he got caught in a Freudian slip, a big one, and I don't think anybody really noticed until years after, until all the evidence, people were starting to do their own research. So that's a very good one. The very same man, Larry Silverstein, who owned the lease to the Twin Towers, I think he had a 99-year lease, he took out, shortly before the terrorist, quote-unquote terrorist attack, a insurance policy on terrorist attacks. Like, you can't make this stuff up. You really can't. And I believe it was like either a month or 2 months or something before the September 11th attack. And he went for it. He got the billions and billions of dollars. I don't know how much. I'll put the number in the video, but it was a ton of money on the insurance claim for the Twin Towers. More money than any of you or I could think of ever having in this lifetime. So he got that. He was able to put some of that money towards building the new building, which is like, I don't know if it's like Tower 1 or something like that, almost in the exact same spot as the Twin Towers went down, which is very bizarre. And he was like, we have to build right away. He was so rushed to getting to move the building job. I think it was literally the next year or something. It wasn't that long after. So this man is, in my opinion, one of the elite globalists. I don't know where he stands in the grand scheme of things or in the pyramid, but he's definitely one of them. Oh, and one thing I did forget to mention about Larry Silverstein. So this must be the biggest coincidence, or he's got to be the most lucky guy ever. On the day, he did not go to his favorite spot for breakfast. He was quoted as, I think, saying this, and as he does every day, first thing in the morning. He was spared because he had I don't know if it was a doctor's appointment or a dentist appointment or something. So he said that his wife had booked him something, and I don't know. He was either the luckiest guy or he knew something was coming. Like, you can't make this stuff up, really. It's right there. There's also the other fact that I just learned this literally the other day, actually, that a lot of witnesses were saying that the weeks before or months before the Twin Towers, they were doing they had the biggest elevator renovation, like upgrade. And it's in the it's like, you can find all of this stuff online. If you just look, it's there. I think this was on Time magazine or something like that, one of these magazines, and it was talking about how it had a revolutionary elevator upgrade. So they had spent time doing that. That would be the only way I could think of putting charges to these Twin Towers, because essentially a lot of witnesses were saying that they heard bang, 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 bang all the way down, and it was not like floors hitting floors. It was sound. They said it sounded like explosions. You can check, and there's like countless numbers of people. It's even on YouTube who say that they heard this and that there was no mistaking it. So it comes back to my original idea, which is, how did they get these charges in if that is the case? And they had crews going in. It's possible. It is very possible. I guess the security would have cleared them. I don't know which company this was that did the work. I'm not saying in any way that they're criminally responsible, but someone must have been able to get in there and plant these charges in both buildings. There was another bunch of witnesses who survived the ordeal, who worked on the lower floors in the Twin Towers, who said they were doing many, many different renovations, and like they would hear loud noises throughout the day that they would work. So, there's a lot of different micro evidence and things that sort of are coming in slowly. Some people come forward later. They maybe were scared because they don't want to get involved because they're worried of something happening to them. I don't know. And it's funny, on a side note, is that people say this is like conspiracy and it's not true, people are making it up. Okay, all the conspiracies that I've seen in the last 4 or 5 years have been coming true. So if any of you guys are believers in this and who are truthers, whatever you want to be called, conspiracy theorists, whatever, truth seekers, if you can't see that 9/11 was, a big red false flag operation that led to so many different things, I really don't know what to say at this point to those people, and that's okay. You don't have to believe it. It's everyone's choice whether they want to believe it or not. Now, the other proof that they say how they know that these were explosive devices took down the buildings is that the fuel from the planes would not be enough to ignite and melt through the steel or the iron that the building was made of. It just wouldn't be enough, because the initial explosion of the plane hitting the building would have burned up the fuel practically instantaneously. And there's a lot of different scientists, engineers, people have come forward and saying this is true. It's not like it's just randomly some person who has nothing to do with it. It's actually educated, well-seasoned people who are professionals, and they know this kind of things. This is their life's work. So one of the other things that they've noticed from after the collapse was that there was what was it called? Thermite, or I think it was thermite, that was fused into the metal of the buildings, and that only could be an indication that it was explosive fuses, explosive devices, and that would have been strong enough to take out, the girders of the building, of both buildings. So lots of testimony about that as well. Tons of testimony. You can look it up. I'll do more of an extensive video of 9/11 next year, the following September 11th, 2025. I think it'll be a great idea, and I'll show like actual kind of footage and stuff. I just didn't really this one I just wanted to get out there because of it's the date, and it's actually almost the end of the day here. So what else is there? There's so much information. It's incredible. The ties of these so-called terrorists to the Bush family. Well, actually, specifically Osama bin Laden. His family were friends with the then President George W. Bush, and the same day they rushed the rest of his family out of the United States. I guess they had ties somehow from way back when, maybe the oil, something to do with oil. I have no idea. He was trained by the CIA at many, many years ago. There's just so many different connections. Oh, and the principal guy in charge of security at the Twin Towers is none other than George W. Bush's brother. I think it's Marvin Bush. I may be mistakenly on the name, but it's Marvin Bush. If you look it up, there's information about him there. So everything seems to just be so like a coincidence. I don't know. I mean, if you guys have anything to add that I'm missing throughout this video, or that I haven't said in this video, please write in the comments. There was also I think it was a military operation going on sometime at the same day, like in the morning. So there was a lot of different planes going around and things like that. So there was a distraction. So you weren't really. They say that they weren't really able to disseminate which planes were which because there was just so much activity, which may have not let them see that the planes have gone off course, or if they were even taken over at all. Because one of the other theories is that they were remotely crashed into the plane because of the fact that the types of turns that these planes were making were like nearly impossible. Like basically the most veteran seasoned pilot would not be able to make these sharp turns and different moves with a massive plane like the American Airlines. I forget if it was Flight 76 or something like that. So there's a lot of testimony on that saying it would be nearly impossible for them to do a lot of these maneuvers at that speed. So, and the remote thing is, well, I've heard many different possibilities that they took the planes, the people were taken somewhere, God only knows what they did with them, and the planes were remote military grade type of like a drone type thing. Whether they had that technology back then it's a possibility, because technology these days basically is like what you see today they probably had, way in advance. So it's not like that tech would have been, unlikely to have, especially in the military's hands. I don't know. If any of you guys know something about that, also mention in the comments. Now, some of the footage, specifically around the Pentagon, which is the U.S. Military headquarters, and the FBI, I believe it was confiscating all the footage that could have possibly seen what had gone down, on that day. And around the Pentagon was no different. I think there was like a hotel close by, and they confiscated their footage. But something leaked many years ago, which shows, and if you slow down, because they say a plane hit the Pentagon, if you slow down the footage of that, all you see is like a white streak, kind of like a white pencil going across the screen like that. And that doesn't look like any old plane, okay? It looks like, correct me if I'm wrong, but in my opinion, it looks like a missile streaking across the screen right into the Pentagon. Even the crash site, there was no indication that a plane could have hit the Pentagon at all. It's absolutely mind-boggling that a lot of people bought that story. That was, for me, the most obvious. The fact that they said a plane hit the Pentagon, but there was no pieces of debris from the plane, no bodies, no nothing. Very strange. I don't know. The list goes on and on how many like inconsistencies there are with this whole story. It's absolutely crazy of how this went down, and people bought into it. But I bought into it too. So I want to kind of conclude this video by saying everything that had followed after. I'm sure I'm missing so many other details, but I'll cover it in next year's video, because I think it's important that we never forget this happened. So what followed later was a grand unity in the United States to go after the so-called terrorists of 9/11. Basically, a majority of the country was in favor of invading, going after Osama bin Laden, who was later, killed by another administration. This gave the green light for the government to do practically anything it wanted. And what I believe, and many other people believe, is that George Bush wasn't even really in charge of the U.S. It was most likely his second in command, the then Vice President of the United States, Dick Cheney, which is a huge accusation to make, but it really makes sense because he was kind of the brains of the operation from the very get-go. I don't even think he wanted to join the campaign when George Bush was running unless he was able to be more hands-on. I think that was part of the agreement. Dick Cheney on 9/11 did not want to. I don't know if it was like make it an emergency, or he was basically very like sheepish and wasn't so like worried about scrambling some jets and things like it took a while for them to respond. I don't know if that's the protocol in the White House. I don't know if that's just because he knew that was happening and he wanted to sort of like wait until enough fear was spread. I don't know. Let's get back to what I was saying, the consequences of what happened after following 9/11. They invaded Iraq almost a few, maybe 6 months after, maybe sooner. I'm not exactly sure on the dates on that. And it allowed them to pass the Patriots Act. there was one other one, I can't remember the name, which allows the U.S. feds to go after people and to, spy on people like crazy, which is very scary, actually. U.S. citizens gave up so much of their freedom for a little bit of safety and security, And that's, I think, was one of the reasons for this, was for that. Larry Silverstein got what he wanted. Other globalists got what they wanted. I don't know how much involvement that the Israeli government was behind this, because I don't really want to go down that route, because I might get accused of being an anti-Semite, which I'm not. I really like Israeli people. Jewish. I have respect for the Jewish religion. I don't think everyone is bad, but I'll give you the coin phrase to search is the Sabbatine Francus. That's all you need to look up, and you'll sort of go down the rabbit hole. I don't want to go too much into that, because it's just going to bring more trouble than it's worth. But there's a whole other side thing to this which connects. It's a whole bunch of different reasons why 9/11 happened, but the U.S., I do believe it was an inside job. I think a lot of people do these days. I think the truth is coming out more and more and more. We have to keep pressing on this. We have to keep digging for more information. I'm sure I missed a ton of stuff that I wanted to say in this video, but I really had to get this out and off my chest, because it's been bottled up for more than 15 years now since I've been looking into this whole thing. And it's really quite disturbing that there are people in this world that are fully capable of this. But the more you realize what's actually going on in the world, the more that this makes sense. Everything kind of falls into place, starts making more sense. It's just really, really, we live in a hellish world full of evil, demonic, psychopathic people, and I don't know what else to say about that, only the fact that they got what they wanted on that day, and over 2,000, or I don't know what the exact number was, people died who were just going to work, just to provide for their family. It's really, really, it's sad, of all different age groups. I know there's in New Jersey or something, there's they have a bunch of memorials there. They have the names, even at the original site, they have a memorial there with all the names and the ages. And I can share you a little story before I let you guys go. I was in New York City in 2017, okay? And I met a girl there, just as friends, and it was both our first time being in New York City. And we went to the 9/11 memorial right down by where the building stood, and they have those fountains, The negative energy that I felt, and you guys may not believe this, some of you will, I know, because you've subscribed to my channel and you're aware. The negative energy that hit me, it was so overwhelming. Like a deep, deep sadness hit over me because of the giant tomb that is there, and it's just made me remember all the day that I, where I was. And even I asked the girl, and I was like, do you feel that? And she did, and it was very overwhelming. I was almost gonna bawl my eyes out. I'm being honest. We didn't last more than 15-20 minutes there. We were just sort of looking at the names and observing the people around. So sad. The place is just, it's still reverberating a negative energy there. And I don't know if it's because everyone else there was thinking the same, or like I said, it's a massive tomb and a site where a lot of people lost their lives and their essence was taken away so early in this realm. Hopefully they're in a better place wherever that is. But it was just, I'll never forget that. Even today, 7 years later. Very profound. Yeah, so I gotta leave it right there, guys. Just even talking about it gets me somewhat emotional because it's just it was a very sad day. But I believe that the people responsible will be brought to justice. Let's hope. We cannot let this go. Share whatever information, if you guys remember anything on that day, or if you did research yourself. I would love to hear what you have to say, even from the trolls, because I know not everyone's gonna see what I see and see what others see. It's just you can't get to them. Yeah, may all those people rest in peace, and we'll leave it to that. Thank you very much for watching. If you got anything out of this video, if you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe if it's your first time, and we'll see you in the next video very soon. Bye for now.